Mr. President, this is a critical moment in our nation's history, a moment when partisanship should be set to the side, politics should be put on hold, and every member of this chamber should focus on what they can do to ensure the integrity of our justice system and the integrity of our executive branch. Nothing less is at stake, and none of us here should forget that. Mr. President, for months, the questions surrounding President Trump's campaign ties to Russia, what happened, who was involved, and why, have gone unanswered. The more information that comes out, the more suspicious it all looks. And the more that President Trump tries to douse the flames by firing the people looking at where the smoke is coming from, the more we are going to keep paying attention. Because the bottom line is that there are so many questions, real questions, legitimate questions that absolutely need to be answered. Mr. President, many of us have pushed for these answers. We have called for an independent investigation. We had hoped that President Trump would resist the urge to slow them down or stop them or cover anything up. But Mr. President, the time for the back and forth is over. The time for hoping is behind us, and the time for all of us to come together and speak with one voice for truth and against any kind of cover-up is now. Because, Mr. President, what happened yesterday was truly shocking. And this is coming from someone who didn't think that was possible anymore with the president. But if anyone was wavering before, if anyone wanted to give this administration just a bit more time, I'm hoping they have been paying attention to the events of the past 24 hours because it's hard to stay on the fence now. President Trump's firing the head of the FBI like that in such a haphazard way in the middle of an investigation into his own campaign and activities, well, that should be the last straw for anyone. So right now, it could not be more clear. It is time for a special prosecutor who can run an independent investigation far from the reach of President Trump and his administration to take the case and finally get the answers the American public deserves. At the same time, our efforts here in Congress, especially the investigation in the Intelligence Committee, have to continue, and they need to continue in an independent and bipartisan way. Mr. President, as I mentioned before, this isn't about politics. It shouldn't be anyway. This is about the integrity of our elections, of our national security, of our justice system, of our presidency, of America's standing in the world. No member of Congress, no matter what their political affiliation, should stand in the way of a thorough investigation, and neither should the President of the United States. Mr. Trump may think he can bully his way to a lucrative real estate deal or bully the press or bully his way into the White House, that he can fire anyone, including the Deputy Attorney General, a U.S. attorney, or the FBI director if they dare to get in his way or investigate his wrongdoing. But President Trump should not, he cannot, bully his way out of an investigation, especially not when so much is at stake. Mr. President, more than 100 days into his term, President Trump may have forgotten he promised to be a voice for millions of people across our country. But I haven't forgotten who I represent, and I stand here today to lift up the voices of so many people in my home state of Washington who are calling on us to get the answers. People who care about our country, who know we can do better, who hate to see us spiraling towards situations we have not seen since President Nixon. As of noon today, my office had been flooded with hundreds of calls. The phones are ringing off the hook. On the other end of the line are the people we represent. They are picking up the phone and trying to get through to every one of us in the Senate. They want answers, and they deserve them. So, Mr. President, let's get to the bottom of this for once and for all, for the people we represent, and for the integrity of our elections and our very democracy. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.